When I was around 10 or 11, I noticed human beings are beautiful, and that some look more appealing than others. At first, I really enjoyed looking at women, specifically models and celebrities in magazines. I loved watching other females around me, but if I stared too much, I'd be called a lesbian. That eventually happened when my mom and my stepdad saw me photoshopping pictures of celebrities. The questioning that came after made me feel like such a creep. No, I'm not a lesbian. But if I were, it's none of their business. I didn't even know what lesbians did that made them turn into lesbians. Is it a disease that women catch? If I hung out too much with friends that were female, my sexuality was questioned. I was so scared of being the thing my parents didn't want me to be that I forbid myself from touching or staring at my body for longer than 10 seconds. I didn't understand why I had this obsession with bodies, and I felt guilty that I was the only one in the world who liked the female shape. Not long after, while I was searching for my next obsession, I came across the most majestic silhouette in the universe. Sure, women are beautiful like princesses and queens, the pure definition of poise, cleanliness, and softness. But men, how could I have not noticed them from the beginning if they had been around me this whole time? I knew about boyfriends and girlfriends, but I never cared too much until I started seeing couples holding hands. The more boys I interacted with, the more I wanted to have a boyfriend. Pictures of Michelangelo's David took my breath away. Brendan Fraser playing George of the Jungle was a recurring dream. Male Olympic athletes on television were surreal. This time, it wasn't just about the sacred beauty of the male figure, it was that man was also an idea. No one had told me what kind of woman I should be, and I had no concept of womanhood. As a matter of fact, the women around me were forcibly polite, physically weak, judging, and they easily cried. They were beautiful, nevertheless annoying. But I was 100% sure what kind of boyfriend I wanted. I died for a boy's attention. The fact that I enjoyed feeling stupid and nervous around boys fascinated me. The word man was a synonym of strength, protection, and freedom. I never wanted to become a male, but I started to see them as the superior crowd amongst Homo sapiens. If you're wondering where my biological father was, I have the same question. Anyways, I thought a man could solve all of my problems, including my sexual frustrations, and that became more embarrassing than being called a lesbian. That's why I hid those thoughts deep in the box between my ears. Maybe if I had found strong women who didn't shame me for my feelings, I wouldn't have looked for comfort in the wrong men. Or I wouldn't have been so confused when my stepfather touched me inappropriately. All the women around me did was talk shit about men while crying because they wanted a man. I had multiple conversations with my grandmother throughout her life, and the topic of men came up. Men are cheaters, women beaters, animals. When I was pregnant, I prayed that God give me girls because I would have hated being a mother to boys. All men want is to control women. Your grandfather was an alcoholic. I hated him. My father died of tuberculosis when I was 8 years old. I hated him for leaving me. You think she's the result of experiences with bad men, but here's what I learned about her. She grew up in the 1940s. When her father died, the family fell into extreme poverty because her mother, a housewife, wasn't familiar with the family business. At home, her mother always gave preference to her brother and allowed him to do whatever he wanted, while my grandmother as a child had to do all the house chores women are supposed to do. It was forbidden to have feelings for a boy, and the prime example of the ultimate woman was a 45-year-old unmarried aunt who was a virgin. The only male remaining in that household was her brother, who was 10 years old at the time of their father's death. I asked my grandma why she hated men when her own mother was the one oppressing her. She told me she despised her mother, and that the day she died was one of the happiest days of her life. That's a pretty extreme case, but nowadays the hate against men continues. The modern feminists have focused so much on how men are misogynists that they've forgotten who gave birth to the men who hurt them. At 30 years of age, I now understand why I was so obsessed with the female body. I was desperately looking for role models for the ultimate woman, because the ones I had at home liked to criticize everything I did and pointed angry fingers at men without accepting their own faults. I came across bad men, not because all men are bad, but because women never taught me how to be a woman. That the word woman is a complex philosophical idea, and that men also are capable of feeling love, and most importantly, that all of my desires and thoughts about the human body are completely normal and are nothing for which I should have been ashamed.